Hi everyone, welcome to Watch It Play Table Talk. My name is Rodney Smith. In this weekly segment, I take a gaming-related topic, share my initial thoughts on it, and then invite your responses through the YouTube comments and your own videos that I compile into next week's Table Talk Back segment, and this way we can all participate in the conversation. Well, this time it's going to be a little different. I'm calling this episode Table Talk Topicopia because I'm going to take a bunch of smaller topics that I've either thought of or have been suggested to me that I just didn't feel could fill in a whole episode, and we're just going to put them all in one episode and talk about everything. So let's get started with topic number one. Sometimes when we see age restrictions on games, it leaves us scratching our heads. 10 and up? My 6-year-old could play this. Well, oftentimes publishers are trying to avoid certain fees and costs associated with testing for choking hazards. And so it's just easier for them to say, okay, this is for 10 and up, and they can forego those costs. Other considerations for maturity levels for a game might be things like the illustrations, the language. As parents, we have to make decisions. What are we going to introduce our children to? But what about gameplay mechanisms themselves? Deception is a common element in games like The Resistance, Werewolf, Sheriff of Nottingham. These are games where you're asked to lie to each other's faces. So is that a consideration when you're thinking about games that might be appropriate or inappropriate for your children? Not just what they're visually going to see, but what they're going to be doing in the gameplay. Is this something that we need to be concerned about? At what age do you think it's appropriate? Let's discuss. Topic number 2. Your game shelves are bursting at the seams. It's time to get rid of some of those extra games that you're not playing that much anymore. What is your preferred method for doing this? Of course, there's several different ways: selling, trading, throwing them in the garbage. What do you do most often? And why do you like that method? Topic number 3. Have you ever noticed that sometimes we seem to value negative criticism over positive compliments? I'll tell you what I mean. Sometimes if I watch a board game review and it's particularly critical, in the posts of people's comments, they'll often say things like, "Thanks for your honesty," or "This is why I value you as a reviewer. You're not afraid to speak the truth." But is criticism inherently more truthful than a compliment? Now, this is something I don't have to worry about because I don't review games. I never share my opinions on them one way or the other. But I do wonder what the psychology is behind that. Now, I think we may be more skeptical of positive comments because perhaps we perceive there's a relationship between the reviewer and the publisher. They've received a free game, so maybe their opinion is biased in this way. But putting that aside for a moment, does that make a negative or critical comment any more inherently truthful? Why might we be more likely to think the person is speaking from their heart because they're being critical? Maybe this is more of an observation than a question, but something I thought I'd share and see if you had any thoughts on. Topic number 4, remote gaming. What's it good for? Do you do it? How do you do it? And so on. Well, I prefer to play games across the table from somebody, but that's just not always possible. And I have a lot of friends now that don't live local to me, and I like to play games with them. So remote gaming gives me that opportunity. Most of the time, all I do is I set my webcam over my shoulder and I just point it down on the table. And then I play that way, and I'll communicate with the other person over Skype or Google Hangout. But honestly, you don't even need necessarily the webcam facing the table or at all. I played Zolkin the other day with Tiffany, the one Tara and her boyfriend Steve, and we had the cameras actually just facing ourselves. We each had a copy of the game in front of us, and as we do things, we would just say out loud what we were doing. Okay, I'm moving to this location, I'm collecting 2 wood, I'm trading 3 stone, whatever. And then as I was doing that on my end, they'd do the same thing on their end. So we'd mirror each other's activity, and that way we'd be able to follow along. And this allowed us to play a full game together, have a really great time, and sort of use the webcam more as a social interface than actually to help guide the gameplay. Now, not all games will work that way. Some games, maybe you have a shared deck of cards that you need to draw from and keep secret. And so it doesn't always work. But even then, as long as you're willing to do a little bit of hand waving and say, okay, we're not going to worry about if I get the same card that you have, then even those games can work. So what's your experience like with remote gaming? What do you like? What do you suggest? What do you prefer? Topic 5, Grail Games. These are games that you really want, but they're maybe hard to find, out of print, quite expensive. What's your Grail game? And if you had one, and you finally got it. What was that like? Did it live up to your expectations? For example, my Grail game is Necromunda. This is the first miniatures game that I ever played. I introduced it to some friends in university who were not gamers, but then we all really got into it. Building our little gangs, painting them up, and then playing against one another. It was a lot of fun. But my attachment to the game is primarily sentimental. There's arguably better miniatures games out there now. I've been told that Dead Zone by Mantic Games is basically an equivalent to Necromunda, and I'd probably enjoy that. But I still, for whatever reason, want Necromunda. Is that nuts? Probably a little nuts. But curious to know, what are your Grail games and what lengths have you gone to get them? Well, there you have it. 5 topics for our Topicopia. And I have to say, some of those, once I started talking about them, I realized I probably could fill an entire episode talking about this. And maybe you could fill an entire episode with your responses, but there's our challenge. In the comments below, feel free to leave your thoughts on any one or more of the topics raised and your video responses as well. You can either send me a link to your videos or send me the video directly, however you want to do it. And I'll take a look and try to compile all that into next week's Table Talk Back episode. Do keep in mind, if you're sending me a video response, keep it to 2 minutes or less. It's quite a bit of work editing other people's videos on top of my own, and that just makes it a little bit easier and keeps us a little more succinct, I think. But until the next episode, thanks for watching.